Welcome to episode 12 with Scoot Talk Sports. I'm excited to be joined by Matteo de Brienne, a professional footballer for Valour FC in the Canadian Premier League. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Obviously, lots to talk about. There's a lot going on with Valour season, a lot of games to play, but I thought it would be a nice opportunity to reach out, get to know you a little bit. Lots of people are chatting about you as your career is growing. But I think my first question, going back to Ottawa, growing up in Ottawa, what was your first memory of sports? Was it football or was it something else? Was it hockey, growing up in this country?
Honestly, it was a mix of both. I think I started soccer before I did hockey. I was doing Timbits with my older sister, who's just a year older than me, Isabella. I was doing it with her at the time, but hockey was always a big thing for me because, my dad used to play hockey and soccer, and then my mom used to play football and rugby. And so, I had a lot of different sports thrown at me, and my parents let me try whichever ones I wanted to. And, from there, it was always hockey and soccer. But then it got to a point where I had to decide which one was going to be the one that I felt, was the right direction. And actually, it was my parents who took the route for me. I was about to go to AA tryouts for hockey, which is a pretty high level for, I believe it was Adam at the time. But I had my last soccer game of the season. So my dad's like, we're committed to one thing first. So I stuck to soccer. And then from there, soccer just started taking off, which, honestly, I'm thankful for that, the thought that he gave.
Little nudge in the right direction, I suppose. Hey,
I think that's it.
Yeah. So what attracted you to, what was some of the favorite parts of soccer when you played, young, when you remember? What really attracted you to it? Was it, a certain position, certain type of play, or just being on the ball?
Honestly, one thing that started it for me was friendships on the team. When you're young, you meet a lot of different people, and you don't go to school with them. So it was just one of those things where you just bond with people. But at the same time, you don't. I just feel personally that you don't just play soccer to play soccer. There's a little push in the back of your heart that says, this is something I want to do. And for me, growing up, my parents actually introduced me to Messi. One day I see on YouTube Lionel Messi highlights and stuff like that, and I'm like, wow, this guy's good. And then from there, it just kind of, my love for the sport just really jumped because you idolize people at such a young age, and I think that's what pursued me to continue in the sport.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because my next question actually was, did you have a sporting hero growing up? So was it Messi, or was that just sort of one of the big players that was put in front of you?
That was actually the first big name player that ever stuck to me, I think. I started off as an Arsenal fan because my coach at the time was an Arsenal fan. He bought me an Arsenal's jersey. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's my team. But, the more you watch soccer, the more everything changes over. But Barcelona at the time, when you had such an incredible team, it was just Messi was doing such big things. And even to this day, he's still doing a lot. But he was just one of those players that I idolized in terms of the way he moves the ball, the way he stays on the ball, the way he doesn't go down, he doesn't dive, and stuff like that. And I try to recreate all that stuff. I try to stay on my feet as much as I can, and, hit the ground running.
Love that. So based on kind of what I was able to dig up, you started, as you mentioned, kind of young in soccer, Ottawa South United. You were part of their program for many, many years, I think up to 2016. What was some of your memories of Ottawa South United? You talked about, friendships, was there any people there who had a big impact for you when you were there?
Honestly, there's a lot of coaches there who had faith in me from a young age, and they gave me the opportunity to always jump a level and play with the guys a year older, or even sometimes 2 years older, which was pushing my limits. And the fact that they had that faith and belief in me really helped me in my progress. I think, especially when I'd be staying after training sessions just to do a little bit more. I wanted to make sure that I was one step ahead, and these coaches were always there to help me. They didn't feel like, okay, you know what, my training session's done, I'm going home now. They would stay, and they would actually help me with that, with a few other players as well. But even great relationships growing up with a bunch of my teammates. We just had great link-ups and stuff like that. And there was a time period where we almost had the same age group, the same players for, I think, 4 years straight. So the fact that I got to play with some of my best friends for that long in a row before everybody started doing their own thing, it really, really, it was a great enjoyment for me.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. I mean, I obviously didn't get to the professionals, but I remember the years I was able to play with my friends the most. Even though each of us went in different directions, some of us bigger, some of us out. Those years where we actually got to play together or even sometimes play against each other was the ones that I remembered the most. I see you did a little bit of the under 14 teams for Ontario. You played for the province. What was that experience like? Was that something that you were driving for, or was it something unexpected that sort of came your way based on your performance?
Well, at the time, we were in a league called OPDL. I'm pretty sure it's still a thing now as well in Ontario. But yeah, I mean, once that started for us, I think it was U12 or no, U13, U14. That's when Team Ontario became a thing for my age group, at least, because normally it was the people above me because of age. But yeah, that was always a sight for me. You know, just to be able to represent my province was something incredible. And obviously, you know, it's great competition. Ontario, I would say, is one of the strongest provinces in Canada for football right now. And I just felt that, you know, if I can manage to get myself in this age group here, you know, it's really going to do a lot for me. And I think it did a lot of positives for me.
So kind of looking back at that academy experience, you know, we'll get into some of these other trials and stuff, but what was your favorite aspects when you were playing, football or soccer at that age? Like, did you have a favorite position or kind of a way to play? Like, what was your favorite moments when you actually got out there and played a game? You know, all that training, all that work went into it. Do you just love being on the ball, or was there something else that you enjoyed?
I just feel like I'm a player with a lot of energy, and so I always love getting involved in the play, regardless of it being an attacking or a defensive phase where, you know, I'm trying to run back and make a huge tackle, or, you know, I'm trying to win a ball higher up the field. I'm just trying to. Obviously, I think everybody loves being on the ball. Me personally, I love being on the ball. I try to give the ball and get it right back. I try to always move around for the players just to create options and stuff like that. And that's been something that over my career so far, you know, it hasn't been very long, but, you know, I've had coaches and teammates who have been there to help me as well. So I've always been able to work with different groups of people, and I think it's been working. So
Question for you, because again, you know, younger career, as you mentioned, is just sort of the beginning, right? You're listed as a defender on Wikipedia, which I actually thought was a little shocking based on what I've seen you play here in Winnipeg. Did you prefer being like, were you a defender before, or were you sort of like just slotted wherever you knew you could help out?
I mean, when I played my whole career in Ottawa and stuff like that, I was a left winger or a right wing or a striker. I was one of the three. But when I moved to Whitecaps, I had Robert Earnshaw, a Welsh international, who was our head coach. And he saw me more as a left back or a left wing back more, so that I can get involved in the play and defend, because that was more of my forte. He thought. And from there, for my 4 years that I was at Whitecaps, they had me fluctuating between the position of left wing and left back. So it helped me with a different type of versatility. But, you know, I still found that when I went to Carleton, striker wasn't my favorite position because I hadn't played it in a while, because I went from left wing, left back to striker. But it was a position that obviously, you know, I had people around me who helped me a lot, and I learned a lot from it. But, you know, when I originally signed for Valour, I signed as a left back because Phil Dos Santos, who was the coach at the time at Whitecaps when I was in the academy, I was also left back. So I feel like there was a part to play there as well. But in training camp, players get moved around all over the place and stuff like that, and I just managed to get moved up top. And from there, I guess there was a little bit of a spark, which has given me the opportunity to, you know, be where I am today.
It's really interesting to hear. I love that because, you know, watching you play up front, at least, you know, the last season or so, you look very comfortable up top. And so seeing defender there, I was like, really? Oh, I didn't realize, you know, because you do look very confident on the ball, especially this season. Just getting into a little bit of your trials, because there was a few mentions on there I thought were kind of interesting. So it seemed that Ottawa South United had a relationship with Dallas Texans SC, and you actually got a chance to go over and trial with Real Madrid. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so what that was is because it was the affiliation there. There was three guys who went down to Madrid. It wasn't with Real Madrid Academy. It was with the Dallas Texans, but it was basically like a trial where they're going to pick a player here and there to get involved with the academy or come back for a trial with the actual, you know, Madrid Academy. And that was my first time, I think, away from home, because I was in a whole different country and stuff like that. But honestly, it was an incredible experience. We had, you know, I had my Jim Lianos, who was he's one of the big managers of the club, Ottawa South United. He's got a good relationship with the Dallas Texans. And, you know, he gave me the opportunity to go there. It was with a group a year older than me as well. So it was a challenge for sure, but it was something that I'll never forget. Just to get to see the training facilities and see, if you work hard, this is what you can get in the future. And so all this stuff really motivated me to continue what I'm doing.
It's interesting you mentioned that kind of seeing the levels, right? I was lucky enough to interview Fisk last year, and he mentioned, seeing levels. You get confident with yourself, you're feeling really good, and then you go to another training or a trial, and you see that next level, right? And
Yeah.
it's just like, it's motivating. It brings you that energy to be like, I can do this. I'm going to get to that level. Speaking of trials, you had one with Crew as well in the UK, and that was in, I think, 2016. How did that come around?
So actually, I was with the 2001 age group, the 2001 OPDL OSU age group, and every year I think it's the U14 age group, they go down to England for 2 weeks or so, and we do a bunch of friendlies against pro clubs and stuff like that, and just tour around. And my Paul Harris, who's actually now back at Crew Alexandra, he's actually the technical director now. He just pulled me, a guy named Antonio Carlini, who plays on TFC2, and Luca Nicastro, who goes to Bonavental, not in Winnipeg, but it's a university, NCAA. And we had an opportunity to trial there, and I honestly, I think I made the most of it. It was a great opportunity for me to showcase myself with, the European talent, and I think it went extremely well. I'd say it wasn't more so a trial. I'd say it was more so just an opportunity to train and, see the level. But honestly, it was an experience that I'll never forget.
Yeah, just kind of cool reading those little tidbits. And even if it's, not an official trial, or you're kind of going out there and seeing the levels, it must be, coming from Canada, where, quite hockey first when it comes to a lot of things and facilities. So when you go overseas and you see that kind of, it's football, it's everywhere. Soccer is everything. Pretty cool. So you had joined the academy, the Whitecaps, I guess around that same time. Was it before or after that trial, or I guess somewhere around there, that you'd joined the Whitecaps Academy? What were some of your strongest memories when you were at the Whitecaps Academy? You talked a little bit that Santos was there at the same time, and connections back and forth, but what's your biggest memories from the Whitecaps Academy? What did you learn when you were there?
I think I had to learn how to become an independent person at a very young age. I think that's one thing that I thank my parents for giving me that opportunity, for letting me move away at such a young age. But I think it's just the fact that, one, I had to teach myself a lot of different things at such a young age, how to, make sure I'm on time, to make sure that I'm eating the right foods, to make sure I'm recovering, to make sure I'm getting the right amount of sleep. This is not stuff that people tell you to do anymore. It's stuff you had to figure out yourself to make sure that you're a professional, or if you want to be a professional one day, you got to do it yourself. But then after that came, putting in my work every single day at training, and, year after year. It was just, it's difficult. I got to admit it was difficult, but it was quite a journey, to say the least. Especially, I've never went to school with my teammates before, and playing on the Whitecaps, we all went to school together. So the fact that I'm around such a group and we bonded so well is just, it's an experience that, like, it was something I wish I had when I was younger. But the fact that I was able to get it now, and I was able to go to school with my friends and play with my friends and be with them a lot, I think that really helped me coast through my 4 years.
It's interesting because being from Winnipeg, a lot of the connections for players end up in the Whitecaps Academy, right? And so you hear a lot of the stories of that camaraderie that's built, where you're around these people, your teammates, your friends, 24 hours a day practically, right? So so you're working through the Whitecaps Academy, you're learning, you're training. You end up signing with Atletico Ottawa in July 2020. How did that opportunity, or that initial signing or relationship with Atletico start? I know that you ended up not staying there, but what was that conversation like?
So at the beginning of it, it was a factor of, I was still at Whitecaps at the time. So, but this is also when COVID hit. So I had to come home anyways, because they're like, we're not going to let you just stay here and potentially get stuck. We'll just send you home and stuff like that. So all the billet players, or players who weren't from Vancouver, we all got to go back home. And from that point forward, it was getting to a point where, we were there for a little bit of time, where I feel like decisions had to be made. And actually, Atletico Ottawa was training at the OSU training facility. And so I talked to Jim Lianos, who's the GM, and he managed to, get me to train. I obviously had to ask permission from the Whitecaps to do that. And originally they said no, in which I had to actually ask them, okay, you know what? I've been there 4 years. I'm trying to think of my future and stuff like that. And then I asked for a release just so I can potentially pursue my career in something different, whether or not it was going to an NCAA school, which I had offers for, or potentially having an opportunity here. And, from that point forward, I was able to train with Atletico Ottawa, who, fortunate enough, they gave me the opportunity to stay with them throughout the whole preseason. But they had originally told me, we don't plan on signing you. You're just a body to help us train for numbers and stuff like that. And I was okay with that. But obviously trainings, I don't treat it like it's a training session. I treat everything like it's a game. So I made sure that I did everything I could to maybe see if there would be a spark in the, in the tunnel. And fortunate enough, a week or so before the trip down to PEI, they had offered me a contract. So all credit to the contacts that Jim had to get me involved in that, especially at such a rough time, because COVID was going around. They only wanted a certain bubble together and stuff like that, but they trusted me and what I did and gave me the opportunity.
That's very cool. It's interesting kind of hearing the background, because a lot of that doesn't get talked about. It's just simply a line of you signed with someone, and it doesn't usually tell the background story. So that's pretty interesting. So you're signed with Atletico in 2021. I guess you were continuing to play with Ottawa South United as part of that. Was it either a loan, or were you still contracted to Atletico, or is it just a short signing? I was just trying to figure that out when I was looking through it.
After the season?
Yeah.
After the season, I was with, it's called the PLSQ, which is the Quebec League One, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I only played one game there. And then after that, I flew straight to Winnipeg to play for FC Manitoba during the summer.
And that was the 2021 Summer Series, right? Where it was that kind of Western Canada tour, because the USL2 obviously going across the border was going to be a problem for FC Manitoba.
Yeah, no, exactly.
How did that come about? Did you have a relationship with someone within FC Manitoba? Like, it's always interesting being a Winnipeg kid myself, finding when people come from Ottawa or the East Coast or, the West Coast, and they end up in Winnipeg, which is, we're very self-deprecating here. But how did the FC Manitoba adventure happen for you?
So my agent's actually from Winnipeg. So that really did, a lot easier for me, especially with everything being locked down and like all the other provinces. But seeing that Manitoba was one of the only provinces that was actually a bit more free. So it was actually very easy to get me here. But me and my friend Ryan Robinson, who now plays on Halifax, we were kind of like the test dummies. They were going to see if it was worth bringing players in from other places to integrate with the team and stuff like that. And I think, it was a great jumpstart, especially with the Garcia family, who, hosted us and everything like that, took us in and, made sure we were, comfortable. I think it was a great experience, especially with the connections that, we have through my agent with Valour. So it's been really good.
Yeah, it seems like that Winnipeg connection has really come through for a lot of these decisions, for sure. Do you have any memories from that summer series? Was there anything really memorable about that, or was it sort of just continuing to grind, finding that improvement match to match as you moved along?
So before I came, I had actually, the day before I flew, I had to call my Carleton coach and tell him, hey, I'm going here for the summer. When do you want me back? Basically, when's preseason starting? And so I had to sign all the contracts and stuff like that to sign for the team. And then I flew, and exactly when I got back, that's when everything started again. So it was just about the timing for it. But I think, it was a great decision as well, because it really helped me prepare myself for the Carleton season, because the level there was very high. All the players are more, university players and stuff like that, even in youth sports. So the level was always there. The competitivity is there, as well as the, what's the word for it? It's just, they're all players who want to get better. And I think that Manitoba is one of those provinces that are very slept on for athletes, because I think we have incredible talent here, but it's very hard to showcase it with the lack of, media that we have here.
That's really interesting you mentioned that, because it's something that is, even a Valour supporters were quite connected to the local, but a lot of people don't realize how many clubs there are here and how many people are playing, and that there is quite an infrastructure. You talk about FC Manitoba and the leadership and the ownership there. They're dedicated to what they do, and I'm sure that they're in it for the love of the game, and in it for the love of then more so than making it a business, right? So right after that summer series, you ended up going back to Carleton to attend there. And like you mentioned, you prepared well. You obviously shows well anyway, 6 goals in 10 appearances, getting the silver medal at the Nationals. You were also named as the OUA West Rookie of the Year, as well as the 2021 U Sports All Rookie Team. So obviously, you talk a little bit about that FC Manitoba experience and preparing you. Well, you're understating it a bit. You came in there at a higher level and really seemed to improve. What kind of made that opportunity attractive for you at Carleton? Obviously, the quality of the play. Was it just kind of being at home, being able to showcase yourself close to home, or was there other thought process there?
Throughout my soccer career so far, I haven't really been home to play. So, being home, playing in front of friends and family, it's always nice, but it's not something that I felt would make me more comfortable if I did. It was just the fact that I was also thinking too, I always need a backup plan. Soccer is my number one focus, but what if something were to happen? I'd like to have a backup plan. So I just wanted to, begin my education, and being able to play, soccer as well while I'm at the university was a good option. And knowing that Nationals was going to be hosted in Ottawa was, a decision that I really couldn't turn down, because actually originally, knowing that it was hosted in Ottawa, I was like, oh, I'd be sick if we made it. I didn't realize that we have an automatic bye. So, every game that I played, and because the moment we played into the semifinals and we lost to Guelph, I was upset with myself. I'm like, man, now I can't play at Nationals in front of my family. I can't this and that. And everybody's like, okay, relax. Like, we qualify anyways. And I'm like, okay, why didn't anybody tell me any of this stuff? But I think it was good that I didn't know, because I felt like there was just an added motivation to make sure that I got to where we wanted to get. And so, it was positivity after that. But, it's unfortunate with the result that happened in the finals. But we had such a great group of guys. It was a great brotherhood, and I really enjoyed it.
It's almost like a little secret weapon. Just don't tell them. Don't tell them that we get the bye. Just let them grind, like kind of interesting knowing that. So you initially had thought, coming out of U Sports, you're playing for Carleton. You have the opportunity to join that 2022 CPL U Sports draft, but you ultimately withdrew and signed a contract with Valour FC. So obviously that's a lot of big decisions. There's a lot of change in this kind of 2-year window for you during the pandemic. Like, it just seems like there's a lot happening in terms of, big decisions for someone who's at the beginning of their career. What was that decision-making process like, and what made you want to sign with Valour?
I think it was just the fact that they really showed the interest that really caught my eye. You looked at the top 4 picks and stuff like that, who was, I think, Ottawa, Edmonton, think it was York, and then Valour. I'm not too sure what the list was and stuff like that, but I was talking to my agent at the time, and he said that it's possible that I go anywhere within 2 to whatever. And I said, okay, well, I'm willing to take that risk. I worked hard, and we'll see what happens. And then before the draft happened, I think 2 days before, whatever, my agent calls me down and he tells me, okay, well, look, we have this here for you. It's a guarantee. You don't even have to try out for the team. This is something that can really, help you, especially being one of the first, or being the first U Sports player to sign a direct contract with the CPL instead of getting drafted and signing a full contract. So I'm like, this could be an opportunity that, might benefit me more. And I just decided, you know what, I think the way that Phil Dos Santos, integrated me in, and, we had a few phone calls, and I just think it was very, very positive. And so I'm like, you know what, I think this might be the right decision for me. So far, I think it's been good.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, from my perspective, it's been fantastic seeing you grow here in Winnipeg. Here in Winnipeg, we will attach anyone who comes here from another place and go, they're playing in Winnipeg. They love our city. There's a certain amount of I don't know, stubbornness with Winnipeggers that we hate where we live. But at the same time, we absolutely love where we live. And when we see somebody else jump in, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about your family, the last little bit that we've been chatting. And, as a Valour supporter, I often see, your dad and your mom and family members active on social media, showing love for you and the club. And then you also see your family members quite often here in Winnipeg, supporting you from the stands when they have the opportunity. I've seen your dad a couple of times just losing his mind in the crowd. Just love seeing it. Tell us a little about your family and what it means to have their support, throughout this journey to become a professional footballer? Because, you know, you see those photos when you guys went to Ottawa, you see all your friends and family there, and you can see the joy that you're having there when you get to play in front of them. What does it mean to have their support?
You know, I think it's more so the sacrifice that, you know, my parents had to make, my sisters had to make, just for me to have the opportunity to be where I am. You know, the money invested into me at a younger age that maybe my sisters didn't quite get. You know, I'm very thankful for everything, because obviously I wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for them. And so it's just the fact that, you know, I've had these people supporting me since we were young kids and stuff like that, growing up. And they're like, you know what, one day when you make it, you know, you owe me this, you owe me that. And I'm like, oh, we'll see and whatnot. But, you know, it's just the fact that I have just a family that's not only supportive for me, but supportive for the club. You know, whether or not I'm doing good or somebody else is doing good, they're always there to support the situation. And so I think that's the biggest part, you know, about my family, is that it's not just an I, it's for everybody. So I think that's why it's been such an enjoyable ride to, you know, move across the country at such a young age to being where I am today. You know, knowing that, you know, they're just a phone call away, or, you know, it's not that far away. If I have a few days off, maybe I can go see them and stuff like that. It's just, you know, it's great to know that they're there.
Yeah, I had to mention that. I know, and it's because it's been really obvious online, just seeing your family members shouting you out and retweeting the good moments, encouraging you in the low ones. That's really cool to see. Speaking of Valor, obviously there's a really great season happening this year in terms of a Valor supporter. We started off, you know, hot, got cold, and now the last few weeks driving for that top 4 spot, the playoffs. This year, for fans of the club, you know, we watched you really grow this year, from somebody who may not have started every game to somebody who almost always starts every game. And when you're out there, you're quite often in the highlight package. So it's showing that you're really improving your game in a lot of different facets, you know, and Phil DeSantos is seeing that and trusting you. Obviously capped off with that goal against Forge. You know, up to now capped off. There's still games to play, but one of the goals of the year, obviously. Who's had the biggest impact on you throughout this year in terms of the Valor organization? Was it other players? Was it the coach? You know, because we've seen that growth. So I'm curious.
You know, I think it's a few of my teammates. You know, they, regardless of me doing well or bad at the beginning, you know, there are players who have been in my ear. They've let me know what I need to do better, that they're there for me to help if I have questions, everything like that. Or even the coaches as well, who have been able to give me the information I need. They're not sugarcoating anything. They're telling me exactly what they want from me, which I think has made it a lot easier for me to adapt to, because I'm like, okay, well, when I get the ball, just remember, okay, this is what they want me to do. Don't do my own thing. Do what they want to do. Because once I do that, then I think that's where there started to be a shift, where it went from no games played, coming off the bench, to where I am today, where I'm fortunate enough to be starting a few games. So it's just been really nice to, you know, go up the rankings with the same people who have, you know, supported me from the lows. And now that we're at the mediums, I don't think I'm at the highs yet. And, you know, I'm working towards it. And, you know, they're there for me, and they know the potential that I could potentially be at. And so the fact that they're pushing me every single day, I think is really helping my growth.
Yeah, I mean, we can see it. You know, I'm not certainly a football coach or a scout by any means, but you know, if I can see the difference and I can see that growth, then, you know, you're right. It's the mediums, because there's way more to come. I think that you've that hard work, that professionalism that you exude, which again, from a young age, is pretty amazing to see. And speaking of your family's influence, you can definitely see it. Couple of questions about football, and then I want to know a little bit more about you before we cap it off here. But what is it like playing underneath Philip DeSantos? Like, what kind of manager is he like? Is he really on you? Is he direct? Do you have a clear understanding of where you're going every game? Because he seems like a guy who's all details when it comes to the sideline and his actions out there.
He's very direct. If you want something done, he makes sure to let you know exactly what he wants done. You know, during the game, I don't think a coach should ever be sitting down, and he's really never sitting down. I think he's the only coach who's ever standing up for almost 95 plus minutes, just to make sure that he, you know, all the players on the field are on the right track. So I think, you know, being under him this year, it's been pretty positive, because anytime you need a little bit of advice for a certain thing, it's not really compliments or anything like that, because as a professional, you don't expect compliments. But all the advice that he gives and all the information, I think, has really helped all of us, you know, as a collective.
It's really interesting to hear. So Last question about kind of your career, but coming into Winnipeg, knowing your agent was from here now kind of changes this question a little bit. But what was your initial, thoughts on coming to Winnipeg, and what do you think of the city now after being here for a little while?
It's gotta be an honest answer.
Oh, honest, please. You got to be honest, because otherwise we won't believe you.
Okay. Well, when I was here in the summer, it was extremely hot. And also I didn't have a car, and I didn't really leave my apartment much. I didn't really see much of Winnipeg, but when I did, I was kind of like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
But so I kind of told myself at the beginning, I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm ever coming back to Winnipeg. But and even the fact that I got here in February, when you guys had this massive blizzard and everything like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? But now that my parents have shipped the car down and stuff like that, so I have something to get myself to and from training, or to go get groceries or go to a movie or something like that, I think it's been a lot easier on me, because now I'm able to see more of the city. And honestly, I think it's no Vancouver because there's no mountains, but I still think that there's a lot of nice things to see around here.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear too, because it's that is sort of the perception. I have friends and family from other parts of the country, right? And Winnipeg is always sort of the butt of the jokes. I mean, we've been in The Simpsons, been the butt of jokes there too, right? So it's not unusual, but you are right. This is a city where public transit isn't great, especially when you're coming from a place like Ottawa or other cities. So having a car would have probably opened up the whole world for you, because it is truly like a bunch of country towns that just have gathered together. That's the way I always kind of look at it.
And that's it, because taking the bus in negative 30 degrees was not very fun, especially because I didn't pack properly. I had a Macron jacket and a pair of white sneakers that I was wearing in negative 30. I get the training and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not good. But hey, we figured it out. Now we got the beautiful weather right now. I can't complain about that. And by the time the season's done, by the time there's a national championship around us, hopefully it'll stay like this. But
yeah, I love that. The idea we could just celebrate when it's warm would be ideally the way to go. Last couple of questions before I let you get back to your day. But outside of football, what do you do with your free time? I'm always interested in asking people, are you a reader? Do you play a lot of video games? You're a cook or a gardener? Like, there's lots of things that people do, with their time. But what is it you usually do when you're not playing football?
When I'm not playing football, for me, I'm one of those people, I don't know what to do with my time off, especially we don't get much time off. So as an athlete, I feel like I should be doing something. So whether it's going for a run, going to the gym, doing something like that. But I also had to learn how to cook at a young age as well. So I like making different creations that I see on, let's say, TikTok or YouTube or something like that. Or even my mom will send me a recipe that she made the other day for dinner, because she'll send me photos and I look at it and I'm like, okay, now you're teasing me. But then my mom will send me the recipe and I'll try to recreate it and I'll try to go off that. So, I really enjoy going to movies, especially with a few of my teammates as well. Cooking is a big thing, but also I think recovery has been a really big thing for me, especially being here, because the level from university to here is much different. After university, training sessions or games, I felt like I had more, less fatigue and stuff like that compared to now. So it's really just the recovery aspect, making sure I'm hydrated and stuff like that. But with my time off, it's just really nice to even go for some walks on the street, because I'm on Corden. So, there's some nice things to see on Corden or Osborne Street. So, it's not bad.
Yeah, you're in a great spot. I'm biased because I spent my 20s in an apartment on Corden as well. So great place to live. For those who aren't in Winnipeg, Little Italy, Osborne Village is one of the nicer, neighborhoods in terms of density in Winnipeg. It's a very walkable place to live. So last question. You said you're a cook. Do you have a favorite dish that you like to make yourself, or do you have a game day dish that you have a routine with?
I'll give you a favorite dish, and then I'll give you a game day routine dish.
Sure.
So my favorite dish is probably when I make chicken parms from scratch with angel hair pasta. That's normally a dish that I like to take my time with and make. But then game days, I don't know why, but I've decided that I'll make sure that I'll get my carbs in at home. So I'll have just a plain bowl of pasta with a bit of butter, and then I'll go to Freshie. And at Freshie, I'll just go get myself a Pangoa burrito or something like that. And that's my dinner. And if I'm still hungry after that, I just make sure that I replenish myself with Gatorade made this thing. It's called the Gatorlights, which is an electrolyte for the Gatorade and stuff like that. And I'll just make sure I have one with dinner, especially with the Freshie wrap and stuff like that. So I've been trying to be consistent with that, and so far it's actually been pretty good, I think. So
you catch that, Freshie? Okay, you see this? You got to sign him up when you need a little marketing. But yeah, thank you so much, Matteo, for taking the time to chat with me today. I really do appreciate it. I know you have a big match coming up this weekend. You're back at home against Atletico Ottawa, another big match for Valour. It seems like we're saying that every week for the last few weeks here, but keeping the momentum going, wishing you the best of luck. And yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. I had fun.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Scoot Talk Sports. I really hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. You can find the podcast on Spotify or your favorite podcast app. All you got to do is search Scoot Talk Sports. Have an idea or some feedback? Follow me on Twitter @_SCOOTR. That's @_scooter. And I'll be happy to chat. Until next time, stay safe and be well.